have a bunch of questions on my list here, but I'm going to start with you, RD. Are there any questions that you have around nutrition, mindset, or just life in general? Meaning of life. We can talk about all of that stuff. We can start with that, or I can start with the list of questions that I have.
Let's get real weird with it. No,
Those are my favorites.
I don't think I have anything in particular, but I'm doing I started the 800-gram challenge this week, and so I was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna start going to the nutrition things to keep my head in the game.
Yeah. Okay. You started this week, so you should be able to hear
Monday.
it if you put those on. Okay. Monday. Okay. So the first 2 or 3 days of something like the 800-gram challenge always going to be a challenge. So how has it been?
It's actually not been too bad. I've been loading all of the veggies in the morning. I try to have between 200 and 300 for breakfast and lunch each. So I've got 600 by the time the afternoon runs around.
Yep.
It is so much volume though. I get really aggressive with it sometimes. The other night I made pasta with a bunch of roasted peppers and onions and cauliflower. And and then by the time I added protein on top of it, it was just an embarrassing amount of food. And I mean, I did eat it all in one sitting, but I shocked myself.
One of the biggest things I found doing the 800-gram challenge is I figured out okay, what fruit and vegetable do I like the most? And how much of that could I eat? And so I figured out that 800 grams was 6 apples. It was something like that, 6 or 7 apples. And so if you're ever at an airport, for example, you can just go to the thing and buy a bunch of apples and you can still hit your numbers for the challenge. So I wouldn't recommend eating 6 apples in a row.
And then everyone on the plane is going to love you.
But yeah, I love the 800-gram challenge. I think it's actually one of the better things that we've recommended because you're just adding things.
Yeah.
And then by adding that stuff, you end up pushing out some of the other junk that you wouldn't have otherwise. Yeah. So
for sure.
But it's all going swimmingly. No major questions yet.
No.
All right.
How are you doing in 2 weeks?
Yeah, I was gonna say, how are you doing? We'll see how you do keeping your refrigerator stocked. I found that was a challenge too.
You get
what you think is enough, and then 3 days
and
later.
already I'm oh shit, I gotta do another grocery order.
Yeah.
Where do you buy your groceries?
I usually get Sprouts delivered.
Got it. Okay. Nice. Yeah, Sprouts is great. You've been to Monterey Market, right?
Yeah. No, I haven't. Berkeley Bowl's the last one I went to. Yeah.
Have you been to Monterey Market, RD?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I would highly recommend Monterey Market. It's that
requires me to leave my house though, and I'm such a hermit. You guys are already asking me to come in person to the gym. What more do you want from me?
It's kind of a little bit on I don't know which direction you're coming from, but it's not that far away from the gym. It's actually my favorite though, because it's like Berkeley Bowl, except it's a lot less crowded. So anyways, All right. I have a great question that maybe, oh shit, I'm breaking my stuff here. I have a great question that maybe is on your mind, but it kind of got me doing some research. So I got to do some fun stuff today. So the first question that I have on my list is what to eat before a workout. And this came up because we had our competition. And the person asking this did not eat for the entire competition because they're used to eating or not eating and doing fasted workouts. Yeah? Have you ever heard that thing where if you do a workout fasted, then you end up burning more fat? Have you ever heard that?
Oh, it's definitely a message that's out there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So you've heard it.
Yes.
So I actually went and found a study. I remember hearing that. And it was first thing in the morning on an empty stomach. Mm-hmm. So I found a study. It's on PubMed. I'll post it in the link as well. That says that you actually do burn more fat when you're fasted, but the 24 hours afterwards, it actually normalizes.
Absolutely.
Right? So you might burn more fat during the time you're actually working out if you're fasted, but in the next 24 hours, you actually burn less fat than you would normally burn. Mm-hmm. So in the end, it makes no difference to work out while you're fasted.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do it if you enjoy doing that, but it's not necessary. Totally. So that's the first thing, is just like, if you're doing it because you think you're going to lose fat, then that's actually not true.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So according to this study, which, all of these studies are always problematic, but whatever. Okay, so what to eat. I actually broke this down. You're going to love this, Katie. I did a lot of research on this.
Look at you.
Yeah, so I actually broke this
it.
down, what to eat. And there's really 3 factors that it comes down to when I'm thinking about what to eat. Now, this is just like everything. This is my opinion. It's not fact, okay? But it's just how I like to think about this stuff. So there's 3 things that matter. So number 1 is your hydration. Number 2 is your energy. And number 3 is your digestion, okay? So it's really easy to say like, oh, just have like pre-workout or just like, do this or whatever. But if you do it in this order, then you'll kind of, I think, in my opinion, solve a lot of the issues. A lot of times people might feel weak when they're working out and they think it's an empty stomach, but actually they're just dehydrated. So the first thing I would do is drink water.
Totally. Yeah.
Right? What do you think? You on board with that one?
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, what does water do? It's the main component of our blood.
Yes.
So we're feeling lethargic, right? Maybe our blood volume is low. Maybe we aren't actually able to get all the nutrients to our muscles that we need to because we just don't have enough blood flow. So water is huge there, for sure. To me, makes total sense.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So number 1 is water. Oh, we have another person joining us. Okay. Now, the first one is water. So basically, like, I'm thinking if you're working out first thing in the morning, just drink somewhere in the range of like 20 to 40 ounces of water kind of first thing in the morning, right, before you get into the gym. So that's really easy. The second is energy. And this just comes down to, 3 different things. And this kind of got me, like, about the energy pathways, right? The 3 different pathways.
Yep.
Okay. So I'm going to explain the different pathways.
All right.
Okay. So, RD, you're here. If you're like, what the hell is he talking about? You just tell me, and I'll try to clarify it. Okay. So there are 3 energy pathways when it comes to like your body moving. Okay. So there's the phosphagen pathway, there is the glycolytic pathway, and then the aerobic system. All right. So the phosphagen pathway is basically the first 10 seconds of anything that you do, right? Your body basically pulls energy that it already has in its muscles and in your muscular system. Basically, it's just using the energy of your muscles, right? And so, those first 10 seconds, you're just using whatever you have.
Yep.
And then it takes you 3 to 5 minutes to recover that energy. Okay, so why is that important? Think about something you'll do under 10 seconds. So like, a 100-meter sprint. Well, I won't do that under 10 seconds, but if you're a 100-meter sprinter, right, that would be a 10-second thing. A 1-rep max.
Yep.
Right? Maybe even a 2-rep max or a 3-rep max. All that stuff is under 10 seconds. Okay? So your ability, this is all power. This is where you generate your power. Like 100-meter sprinters don't even have to breathe when they're sprinting, right? Because you don't need oxygen for this. It's just basically phosphagen, right? Or creatine phosphohydrate or something like that, right? Okay, so when you go to do a sprint or 1-rep max, you're using this energy system. It's already stored in your muscles. You get it for about 10 seconds, then 3 to 5 minutes to recover. It is... my phone's doing stuff. It is replenished after a few minutes. There's actually not a lot you can eat before a workout that will have any impact on this, right? The key to this is make sure that you have a balanced diet the rest of the day and you have enough protein, fat, and carbohydrates, or maybe even not carbohydrates, but just have muscles that have some phosphagen in it so that you can produce power. Does that make sense? So we do a lot of this stuff at the gym. We generate a lot of power. You're lifting weights. Even in a longer workout, every time you pick up the weight, you're actually generating power, right? Okay, that's pretty easy. Nothing you can do about that except for be stronger. Yeah? All right. Next thing is the glycolysis, right? So the glycolytic system. This is everything you do from 30 seconds to 2 minutes. And so this is actually something we spend a lot of time on here. And I don't think it's a great idea for us to spend time here. Okay? So this is almost like the transitional system between the phosphagen the power, and aerobic, right? So glycolytic, 30 seconds to 2 minutes. This is where you are with most Metcons. Like if you were to go for, this is like a 400 meter run.
400 meter run.
Yep.
Classic. Terrible.
Yes. Okay. So the primary energy system from this is carbohydrates, right? So sugar, basically, right? And we call it sugar, but that's what it is.
Yep.
It's sugar that's in your blood. It's sugar that is in your muscles.
And
right?
liver. Yep.
And liver. Yeah. So all the sugar in there, what you have, that's what you're using to fuel this 30 second to 2 minutes, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So the amount of sugar stored in your body determines your performance here. This is actually the least efficient of the 3 pathways, but it's also the one we find ourselves in most often, right?
Here.
Here.
Not in life, but here,
Not
yeah.
in life, yeah. And when we do CrossFit workouts, and you rarely find yourself here when you're running, for example, right? Unless you're sprinting or like trying to do, a fast distance. But if you're running for a half hour, you're not going to spend too much time here,
No.
right? It is an important system, but it's actually just a bridge. It's a transition between phosphagen and aerobic. You spend too much time here and you are going to be sore.
Tapped out.
RD, were you
Yes.
sore after that competition?
No, who was sore?
Yeah, nobody was sore. And so
I
here,
still have not recovered.
yes,
Yeah.
you're not the only one. So part of this is because we're putting all of this effort in, trying to put all this power in, right? And you kind of get to the end of your sort of glycolytic system, like you just run out of sugar flowing through your blood, and you start to produce lactate or is it lactate?
Yeah,
It
lactate.
sounds like milk. Whatever.
Yeah.
So lactic acid, right? And that's what makes your muscles sore. So this is the break in case of emergency system, right? So in order to, it's a bridge. Yeah, spend too much time here, you're going to be sore. If you can train yourself to use the phosphagen system and the aerobic system, then you'll be better all around as an athlete. And there's a couple ways to do that. The number one thing that I recommend for people is to breathe through your nose, right? And this is, it's not that you're never going to spend time here, but this is like the red zone. If you breathe through your nose, first of all, you don't need oxygen for the phosphagen system. You can hold your breath and do a 1 rep max. You definitely need oxygen for the aerobic system, but if you use too much oxygen, then you go into the glycolysis, right? And so if you want to pass this and move to the aerobic system, which is the most efficient, then breathe through your nose. So if you're going to eat for this, you want to basically eat stuff that gets sugar in your bloodstream, right? And we'll talk about what to eat there, but the more the better. The more sugar you have, the more you had to burn, right? Okay, so then the aerobic system, this is everything over 2 minutes. This is the best system. It's the highest capacity. It can go the longest. It has the lowest power. So this is not where you do your 1 rep max, but you can go longer and it takes less energy. It takes less sugar, right? So it is three sources: blood, muscle glucose, so same as the glycolysis system, and fat. Now here's where, like, if you eat super low carb, then you're burning fat when you get here. This is why when I eat low carb, whenever I do a workout that puts me into the red zone, I crash.
Absolutely.
Because I can do 1 rep max, I can do aerobic, anything where my heart rate gets above 160,
forget
I
about it.
just die,
Yeah.
right? So this is the best system. If you are fat adapted, doing keto or low carb, be able to use your fat energies or fat stores for energy here. If you're not as adapted, you'll be primarily using blood and muscle glucose, right? And there's no right answer to that, but it's just the thing. So you want to get here as fast as you can. Like I said, if you breathe through your nose, then you'll get there faster. You can test this. What to eat? If you're low carb, then eat lots of fat, so like nuts, etc. If you're not low carb, then eat slow release carbs, so like low sugar. You need sugar, but you don't need all the sugar at once, right? So like, so whole fruit, I think, is your best option here, or something like that, right? Or something that kind of sticks. You don't necessarily need like goo or
Right.
whatever. So since you can use both systems, also make sure you have some fat and protein. I'd go for trail mix if you're constantly on the move, like if you're doing like a marathon or something like that. I'd save the high protein stuff for later in the day, as you find it'll be harder to digest when you're moving. So you don't want too much protein for this. So yeah, these are how the different systems kind of break down. So then what I would actually, and then the last thing is digestion. So what can your stomach handle? And this is like personal, right? I find that protein and super high like oily fat can be really bad.
Terrible. Yeah.
But some people can tolerate fruits, some people can't, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. So for a single workout, this is what I would recommend. You tell me what you would have.
Yep.
So if you were doing a single workout, let's say first thing in the morning, I drink 30 ounces of water and I probably have half a banana if I wasn't low carb. If I was, if I was low carb, I'd have probably coffee with heavy cream, right? So a little bit of fat and a little stimulant. Coffee is always amazing. So that's that. So for a single workout in the morning, what would you have?
So usually and this comes back to like what kind of workout are you doing? Yeah. And typically I'm doing CrossFit.
Like an hour class, yeah.
A CrossFit workout. So I would have a cup of coffee and a peanut butter sandwich.
Yeah.
It's my favorite.
Yeah.
Yeah, but simple carbs, easy to digest, and good energy for that kind of workout.
Yep. Okay. So if it was later in the day, like you're coming in at 4:30 or whatever, probably have balanced meals throughout the day.
Yep.
But I would stop eating about 2 hours before the workout. Like stop eating a big meal. I might have, if I was hungry or feeling dehydrated or whatever, I might have like half a banana or something before, like 30 minutes before the workout, right? Would anything change for you?
Yeah, if I've had good meals throughout the day, then I'll play it based on how I feel. If I feel like I'm not hungry, then I'll just work out based on, whatever meal I've had. Because we have to remember too that like when you're eating balanced meals, all those things take time to digest. And so typically if you've eaten good solid meals throughout the day, you have a couple hours between your meal and a workout, like you're gonna have plenty of both stored glycogen and still glucose circulating in your bloodstream.
Yep.
Yeah, but if I do get to a workout and I'm feeling hungry, I don't wanna work out hungry. To me, it just never ends well. And so I'll do a quick digesting carb or a quick digesting carb plus protein. So I usually bring like stuff to make a little smoothie here it's got like banana and protein powder and dried oats that I'll whip up into a smoothie and I'll sip it as I start my workout.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or I keep a supplement here called Vitargo, which is a very, very easy digesting carb.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So, and again, it's sort of like, it depends on the time of day. And also it depends on what you're adapted to.
Totally.
Right. So yeah, that sounds perfect. So on a longer day, this is like, I guess if you were doing a competition like we did the other day, I would definitely make sure that I up my water first. So, for me, it's like probably looks like a gallon of water. For you, maybe it's 3/4 or a half gallon, but like basically make sure you have enough water.
Totally.
Right. Bananas, apples, sweet potatoes. These are all things I would eat. I would have a little bit of ground beef. I can handle that. But I would probably have half of what I would normally have because I don't want to take on too much protein. I just want enough to like make sure that I feel a little bit full. I would definitely do boiled eggs. This is one of my favorite. You get protein and fat. And then I like, peanut butter, almond butter, that kind of thing I think would be really good for this as well. So that would be like a competition day. It's not quite eating normally.
I would definitely not call a competition day eating normally.
Yeah.
I would never do it, and I would never advise anybody to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like to talk to people about like bookending the day, like starting the day with a big normal meal that's got your protein, it's got plenty of carbohydrate, maybe it's got some fruit, plenty of like stuff that's hydrating fluid.
Yeah.
And then finish their day with a big meal that's balanced, same way. But then in between, you basically want to shoot for that stuff that's going to give you, that's very easy digesting. It's going to allow your body to get energy quick. Yeah. So not even kidding, I would eat gummy bears on a competition day. I would throw in some jelly beans or like a quick digesting peanut butter sandwich or something like that. And different people are going to be able to tolerate different things, but that's definitely not your day to be like taking photos of these like beautiful, chicken breast and broccoli and whatnot for Instagram. Like not the day to do it. That's your day to just like really focus on whatever it is for you that digests well and gives you good energy.
Yep. And then the last one is, and almost nobody does this, but if you're doing like a long cardio, right? So marathons, things like that. This is, I don't know why I have so much experience doing this, but I always bonk on those things if I don't do it right. So drink lots of water. I would also do salt tabs, which I've done on some of my longer days. Trail mix, so lots of fat, sugar, and salt. Bananas are always a favorite, and I do light protein. The one thing that I've tried this, and it really messed up my digestion, but those goos and stuff that people eat.
Yeah.
like that stuff, it just makes me feel like garbage.
Yeah.
And so, like, I think this is actually something I found out when I did my marathon. If you don't practice this stuff,
Yep.
it does not work when you can't like do it on the fly.
No.
You have to kind of practice eating that stuff to
Definitely.
make it work. So any other recommendation, or do you
Yeah,
do
I used
stuff
to work
like
with a bunch of folks who did like marathons and ultra marathons. Crazy
Yeah.
group of people.
Yeah.
But that was definitely part of the key. Was like in the last weeks leading up to training, part of what we were working on is just eating while you run.
Yeah.
And figuring out what kind of stuff works best because it's different for different people.
Yeah.
But it almost always revolves around eating, especially toward the beginning of an event, like as much as you can front load with like quote unquote normal food.
Yeah.
Like literally like a turkey and cheese sandwich. If you can get that down early in your day where you're getting some carbohydrate but also some protein, it can really help you. And that's like probably the time too where I found clients found it useful to use something like a BCAA supplement,
Yeah.
which tend to help that bonk later on because it's just
Yeah.
like some very easy digesting amino acids.
Yeah.
But then usually as the day goes on, it's much harder for folks to eat solid food. And
Yeah.
then we start to rely more on things like Vitargo. The goos too, from in my experience and most of the people that I've worked with, typically caused more stomach discomfort than it's worth.
Yeah.
But things like pickle juice that are like salty, electrolytes, hydrating, tend to work a lot better. So
Yeah. That's actually a really good one. I'd probably go with something like bone broth or
yeah,
something
bone
like
broth.
that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, and when you say bonk, like we're talking about long, like half marathon,
Yeah.
marathon and beyond. In a competition day, it's a little simpler, kind of like you said. And if you're doing stuff like we did the other day, each thing is about 15 minutes. So you really kind of have to orient yourself around that one workout, and you'll generally be okay. So
Yeah.
that was a lot longer answer to that, but I think the energy system thing is really interesting. And if you understand that piece of it, then, this is why we talked about like breathing through your nose. When you breathe through your mouth, that's when you're kind of saying, hey, I want an extra 10 or 15%, right?
Yeah.
And if you never do that, then you kind of hold a certain pace. And I have found in CrossFit, seeing several competitors, that the ones that are able to hold a pace in aerobic fashion are actually the best ones, right? So, that's part of it as well. Like the better your technique is, the easier it is to hold that stuff.
Totally. When I think it's like a useful topic to bring up too, especially in now like an environment that is very like keto. I think about us as like being in the keto era right now, right?
Yeah.
Where everyone's talking about low carb and fat adaptation. It's like actually that can work in specific cases.
Yeah.
But if folks try that while they're trying to increase their performance in a sport like CrossFit, it is very, very difficult, and I would say like almost impossible to do just because of the energy systems involved.
Yeah. Well, you can definitely get better 1 rep maxes.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, but doing a Fran, you're not going to get your best Fran time
Really
if you're
tough.
eating low carb.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think it's good to normalize.
But
normalize
it's
carbs.
funny actually when you talk about low carb stuff, the people that have really dialed it in, they basically time their carbohydrates around their training, and you start to play around with that a little bit, and you notice actually it does make a difference. All right, so let's get to some of the other questions here. So RD, was that like totally boring, or did you actually get something for that one?
No, it makes sense. Helps understand why I was so sore.
Solid. All right, so we got some really great questions here. How does nutrition affect mental health? It's like a simple question. There's just one answer, right? So tell me, what is the one answer, Katie? How does nutrition affect mental health?
I mean, that is a massive question. I guess, how does nutrition affect mental health?
So, okay, the context of this question is like, I feel like crap when I eat, pizza or whatever. And it has nothing to do with like beating myself up about eating pizza. It's more just like how I physically feel.
Yeah. So this is an interesting one. I think this is fascinating. So one thing that we know is that in going back, like almost all this stuff to me goes back to like how our bodies evolved with food.
Yep.
And, we evolved to eat very specific foods that existed in the normal world. They grew from the ground or from a tree or whatnot. And so sometimes what can happen when we eat stuff that has been chemically altered process that our body doesn't recognize necessarily as food is that our body mounts, our body actually mounts an immune response against it because it recognizes it as foreign. And so, so what can happen is, just like if your body is fighting a flu or a virus, you feel kind of tired, kind of lethargic, and it's because your body is
Brain
working
fog.
really hard to fight off this thing. Well, oftentimes when our body mounts an immune response against something that we've eaten that's foreign, it's not as dramatic as it is going after a flu virus or a COVID virus, for example. But it still happens. And so oftentimes people experience this as just like this low grade sort of energy, brain fogginess, lethargy that they don't even think to tie to the thing they're eating. So many people get wrapped up in this and they just think this is a way of living. And then they medicate with coffee or whatever it is, like to kind of stimulate them. But so, and I guess like, if the question is like, I mean, obviously then that is going to play into your mental health. But I do think that it's important to acknowledge like the role of the immune system and our digestive system and the way they interact.
Yeah, I think it has a dramatic effect on mental health, and it's not, like I said, it's not about how you feel about the food. It's what the food actually does to you, and it does to your body, and then it does to your brain. Like in the end, you know, when you have a flu, you tend to have like brain fog. And what is a flu? It is inflammation. And what is this? What do you call it? This highly processed food. It's basically, like you said, it's foreign and it's causing inflammation. And so your body is expressing the same things that it would express during normal inflammation. And it's sending the same messages like, hey, you need to rest. You need to not do whatever you're doing. You know, we're going to shut down the brain because that takes the most calories right now. We're going to shut this down so that you can rest and recover from this pizza or this, you know, bag of M&Ms that you ate, right? And like you said, I think most people don't actually recognize this. And it's like, it's not even about vilifying food. Like I love pizza. And I love M&Ms.
Me too.
But, but if you know going into it that eating this bag of M&Ms is going to make you feel like kind of low level crappy, then you know you're making that choice. And if you start to feel that way, then that's the reason why. When we talk about mental health, if you don't have that connection, then you might just be feeling crappy all the time and thinking there's something wrong with me and now I need to take Xanax or whatever.
Totally.
Right? And the truth is, like, this is part of why I always recommend some sort of elimination diet, or maybe not a diet, but like a protocol. Like eliminate a whole bunch of stuff, see how you feel. And focus on how you feel first, not how you look or how you perform, how you feel. And if you start feeling better, it's chances are there's something you're eating that's making you feel like crap.
Yeah, and I think like what is tied into this too is like the role of gut bacteria. I think this is one of the most interesting fronts on nutrition research right now, and I'll be so interested to see where it goes. But what we're learning is that the bacteria in our gut affect every single other system in our body.
There's like a brain in there.
It's like the second brain, and it connects to our own brain via the vagus nerve. And not only is it impacting our nervous system, but it's impacting our endocrine or our hormone system. It impacts our digestive system, obviously. But what's super interesting is that the makeup of our gut bacteria can change very quickly based on what we eat. So this actually even ties back to like 800 gram challenge stuff, right? So it's like because bacteria's favorite food is fiber. They love fiber in fruits, vegetables, whole grains, all that stuff. But if you're eating a highly processed diet that doesn't contain a lot of fiber, you have a bacterial environment that has adapted to that. So what's fascinating about like someone doing an 800 gram challenge, and I'll also often tell people if they rapidly increase their vegetable intake, chances are they will feel better in the long run because they will be feeding the good gut bacteria. But in the short term, they're probably gonna feel like shit because their gut is adapted to all these other basically pre-digested foods. Their gut's actually not having to work very hard. So I like to think of it as like if you took New York City streets and all the cars on New York City streets, and suddenly you put a bunch of boats in New York City, and you're like, okay, go. And it's like, that shit's going nowhere, right? Boats are going nowhere in New York City. But if that was all there were, if that was all that happened in New York City, eventually folks would build canals and they would figure it out, right?
Yeah.
And then before you know it, the boats would be moving smoothly again. So like when you change your diet, I think one thing that is so important for people to recognize is that oftentimes if you change your diet to include more gut bacteria friendly foods to boost your mood, you're probably going to feel worse before you get better. And so just recognizing like, oh, okay, I'm going to have to go through this period of like my whole bacterial environment in my gut is changing.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to deal with that for a little bit and get to the other side of it.
That's really interesting. I never thought about it that way. Every time I've made a change to my diet, it took 2 weeks for me to feel normal.
Yeah.
And it was like, not like, I'm talking about like big changes. And it takes 2 weeks to feel normal. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
And in fact, even like if I drink alcohol, it takes 2 weeks for me to feel normal. So it's like a choice that you have to make.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think nutrition has a huge impact on mental health.
Yeah.
And in
just
fact,
and to that point, like gut bacteria, we know now manufacture 70% of the serotonin that we experience in our brains. So just to like hammer home like the role that the gut plays in mood is like massive.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
So what I would recommend if you think that your nutrition is impacting your mental health is to do some sort of elimination protocol and give it 2 weeks and see how you feel at the end of that. And obviously do it with the help of the coach and stuff like that. But like, I think that's the only way you'll know for sure. It could be that pizza actually has no impact on you. And if you are, then I envy you. Yeah, there's actually a pizza place here that serves gluten-free crust. Have you been there yet?
No, but I've heard all about it and I want to go.
Yeah, and you don't feel like crap afterwards. So yeah, nutrition and mental health. All right, how should you eat on rest days versus training days? Do you eat any differently on rest days versus training days?
Nope, and I typically don't advise it.
Yeah, I don't think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan. I mean, I know we talked about what to eat around a workout. I'm actually not a big fan of meal timing or like changing what you eat about rest days, and it just like makes you too crazy about like, oh, I didn't get the optimum window of food. Like, forget all that. Just eat what you eat.
Yeah, I like to think of like different strategies having different levels where it's like if your diet is tied in and like you're feeling great and you're nourishing yourself with like a lot of whole foods and you feel good in workouts and you're sort of like looking for that next thing, like carb cycling, or this idea of carb cycling, which is basically eating differently on rest days versus workout days, like is a strategy, but it is one of those strategies that like is going to make 2% difference if you're already doing 98% of the other stuff right, and most people aren't. So it's like starting with that 98% and not getting too tied up into like the cycling business, I think is best for most people. Yeah,
I've tried that stuff, and it's just like, I feel like a scientist, and I'm like, I just want to eat food. Like, I'm hungry right now.
Exactly.
Let me eat food right now.
Exactly. And I found too that like some people actually, and I would include myself in this group, was like, I actually generally feel less hungry on days that I work out because there's like the adrenaline around it, and it's actually on my rest days that I actually feel the most hungry. So I'm like more in that like rest digest mode. My body kind of like wants that recovery fuel.
Yeah.
So that's the other reason why I don't really switch anything.
Yeah.
Rest versus workout.
Yeah, and I also think part of what we're getting to. So here's my take on this. You tell me if I'm wrong. Going through all this nutrition stuff, the only point of it is to break out of the basically manufactured cycle that is caused by the standard American diet and really connect back to the signals that your body is sending and being able to pay attention to those. So if you are constantly eating food from a package, you're getting chemically enhanced food that is designed to make you crave more food. If you are eating whole foods, then your body starts to sort of normalize, and when you're hungry, then you'll eat. And when you're not hungry, you won't eat. And so we talk about like, what should I do on rest days versus training days? Really, the goal is to have a better relationship with food and your hunger so that you will know what to do because your body will tell you. And you will not get that if you eat pizza and M&Ms every day. So like, does that make sense?
I think it's one of the most challenging things about appetite and the way that processed food affects appetite. And this is not to demonize processed food, because it's also important to like normalize that is going to be a part of your diet. And so it's just a matter of to what degree. But I think one thing that is challenging about it is that it affects the very release of hormones that signal trust that we're satiated.
Yeah.
And so it can be so much harder to regulate your food intake if you're depending on your appetite being tied to these different foods.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, like the more you're able to kind of connect with like what hunger really feels like,
Totally.
which is why we do these elimination protocols and fasting and all this other stuff. Like you start to get what hunger really feels like, and then you know, like, okay, I'm hungry. Like if you did the competition on Saturday, you were probably hungry. There was a lot of leg related stuff that's going to make you hungry. Yeah.
Definitely. And it's good to normalize too the fact that like for a lot of people who have been on and off diets for a really long time, oftentimes there is a lot of disconnection from your own hunger and satisfaction signals. So a lot of people who I've worked with who've like dieted for a long time have actually lost touch with what those are.
Yeah,
and
because
so
they have to follow the rules.
Exactly.
And they have to, you know, I got to have this many calories. I have to do this thing. It's like, those are guidelines, but actually you need to tune into like how you're feeling.
Yeah, and if that's you, like if you're in that boat, then be patient with yourself because that process takes time. Like I don't know if you've ever experienced, but I know I have, and it was. I don't want to scare anybody off, but it was like probably the better part of years before I really got in touch with what that felt like.
It took a long time. Yeah. But that doesn't mean you can't get the results you want. It's just like you can get the results quickly, but that's like the first 10%.
Absolutely.
And then you have to figure out how you're going to live the rest of your life and how you're going to negotiate like what surrounds us, our food environment, with like what you actually need to keep yourself healthy. All right. Anyways, let's talk about nutrition versus sleep. So this is really interesting. What's more important, nutrition or sleep?
I know how I would answer this to you.
Yeah. What do you think?
I would go with sleep every time.
Me too. Why?
So when we think about, speaking of the things that regulate appetite, we know that sleep is one of the biggest ones. And if we don't get enough sleep, there's a lot of things that happen hormonally. They make it really hard, A, to regulate our appetite, and B, our body tends to, if we're not getting enough energy, crave energy and quick energy in the form of processed carbohydrates. It's like the easiest way to get it. And so I find oftentimes if you're trying to change nutrition without addressing sleep, you're going to be white knuckling it because you're going to be fighting your body's own hormones plus cravings, which is just, you're only going to last so long that way. Yeah.
I mean, you make better decisions when you've had a good night's sleep. And nutrition, if you're trying to change something, comes down to daily decisions, right? Or putting, you know, obviously you want to avoid decisions if you can, but like it's daily stuff that you have to do. And so, yeah, you're right. I'm 100% with you.
Yeah, I used to tell my clients, I was like, you heard it here first. They're like, the next fad diet is going to be the 7 to 9 hours of sleep diet. Like that is because it actually works.
It does work.
People don't want to hear it, but
no, you do not want to hear that. Okay, that was an easy one. All right, we got two more. How to sort of get out of a nutrition rut, or how to make it through the holidays? Which one do you think?
Oh, I feel like they are in the similar boat.
All right, let's go through the holidays.
Okay.
Because anytime I've been in a rut is after the holidays. So how do you get through the holidays? So do you have strategies for how you approach the holidays and what you do?
Yeah, I have. So I have my own strategy that I like to use, but when I think like big picture here, when thinking about the holidays and thinking about like broadly social events and gatherings that involve food. I think the most important thing for each person is that you're setting intention around what you want to get out of that day or that week. And that is actually the most important part. And what your intention is, hopefully will be in line with your goals and values. And so for me, for the longest time, you know, I have a history of disordered eating, and holidays were extremely stressful, and I would try to restrict myself during holidays. Typically, that would result in when everyone would go to sleep, I would go and I would binge on all the cookies, and then I would throw up, and that was what it was, right? And I was missing out both on the enjoyment of that food when I was with other people who I could share it with, and then I was also paying for it later because of the guilt associated with that binge. And so for me, for the longest time, intention setting around meals was actually to enjoy food in the company of other people, which for me, after like with my history, was a huge challenge. And so that was the intention I used to set around holidays, at least in more recent years, and it's been fantastic. I think like for somebody else, where they get to the end of the holidays and they feel like, holy crap, what just happened? Setting intention could be like, okay, I'm gonna pick these 3 particular family meals or family dishes that I truly love.
Yep.
And those are the ones where I'm gonna like really enjoy, and I'm not gonna worry about balance in my meal or anything like that. But outside of those meals, I actually do wanna think about balance because I feel better that way. I interact with people better that way.
Yeah.
So in my eyes, like what it looks like at holidays is probably gonna be different for different people.
Yeah.
But I think the most important thing is that ahead of time, you're setting that intention around like, what do I want to get out of this day, this meal, this interaction?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. I mean, I've tried a lot of different ways of doing this. I've done the sort of kind of white knuckle, like, I'm not eating anything that is not on the menu. I'm not drinking. I'm not doing anything over the holidays. I've done that. And then I've also done I'm going to take, whatever, a month off, right? So just side note, one of the reasons we started the 12 days of CrossFit, 12 workouts in 12 days, one of the reasons we started it is to help people have some reason to show up and eat well. So it's like 2 weeks of workouts that are 2 weeks before Christmas, right? So it at least breaks it up, so you're not just going like Thanksgiving and then January, right? So that's one of the reasons we started that. And it's been extremely effective to kind of keep people like motivated throughout that time. So I've done both, and what's really interesting is I find at this point I have the muscle to make myself do whatever I say I'm going to do, but my life enjoyment, like the scale of enjoyment, starts to drop if I flex that muscle. And so what I end up doing is similar to what you just described. My rules are really more, if I'm going to go way off of my plan, whatever it is, normally just eating meat and vegetables, whatever, right? If I'm going to go off, meat and fruit. If I'm going to go off my plan, it's because I am with other people. Yeah. Because in the end, they've actually done study on this in the blue zones where people live the longest. They drink alcohol, they eat all kinds of foods. The biggest thing is they connect with people when they do that. And so I think what's really important here is if you're going to go out for a couple of drinks, do it with friends, right? Not at home. Or if you're going to, have some cookies or whatever, make it as part of a party or, whatever. And that usually for me, because look, I mean, I'm a big dude. I can put on 20 pounds in a month pretty easily, right? So for me, it's the things that you do in between those events that matter more than what happens at the events. Does that make sense? Yeah. And so, it's that intention. So now going into it, it's like, I'm not going to make myself do a certain thing. I'm just going to make sure that when I do enjoy the stuff that I actually enjoy it.
Yeah, totally.
So,
Yeah, I love that. I find, I hate talking about the holidays and thinking about the holidays with people because they can be times of like incredible connection and joy, and they can also be incredibly triggering for people, especially when you're seeing people who you haven't seen in a long time. Yeah. And if your body has changed in the last time they saw you, at least in this culture, we're very quick to comment on that. And so I think one thing that I like to advise folks.
When you say, damn, you look good, is that what you say?
So it could be that. It could be, damn, you look great. Well, and here's why, actually, so interesting anecdote, this used to happen to me. So I would travel home for the holidays, and I used to, struggle with anorexia. I was very, very thin. And then when I went to college, I struggled with binge eating disorder, so gained a lot of weight. And gained a lot of weight, meaning like back to like what would be considered in our BMI world to be like healthy weight, right? Yeah. So I would go home and my mom would say, "You look so great." And it was so brutal because like I did look great. I didn't look like I was about to be hospitalized, right? But but what I was doing was still so destructive that like it felt just like salt in the wound to hear her say like, "You look great." And what she didn't know is I had just spent like the last 6 hours in the airport, like binging and puking. And it was like, oh man, she said you look great. So I think it's one thing that like we just have to be really careful of. And one thing that I try to watch around holidays or like when I'm seeing people I haven't seen in a long time is to be like, maybe if I'm going to comment on something, like comment on, oh, you look really you seem really energetic. You seem really happy. Or just to ask, like, hey, how are you feeling?
Yeah.
But to invite conversation that doesn't necessarily revolve around people's bodies. Because even if someone does wow, they've lost weight and maybe they were, before, it was we don't know how they did it.
Yeah.
We don't know if they're really suffering. So I think it's
So just don't talk about people's bodies. Also, here's the thing: when you start coaching people on nutrition and people, and you're you own a gym or whatever, they know you do this for a living.
Yeah.
You sit down for dinner, and people always have shit to say.
Always
I shouldn't be eating this.
Yeah.
I should be eating. I'm just I don't care. Just eat whatever the hell you want. I'm not judging you.
Yeah.
And then I feel okay, maybe I need to eat more so that people feel
right.
and I'm just I basically just tell people look, I as Tina, my wife, we've done these Thanksgiving dinners where she was actually coaching somebody at the table, right? Because she would coach everybody and they they always kind of look at her and she's like, no, we're not doing that today. We're not going to talk about this. This is just what's the point if you can't enjoy a meal with your family, right? So, or with your friends. Look, maybe your family just sucks. Go hang out with other people. All right. So, so last question is, if you are in a nutrition rut, how to get out of a nutrition rut? So, I guess we would have to kind of define what it means to be in a rut. So there's a couple different ways I think about this. One is you're just whatever you had planned, you're just off the plan and you just feel you're stuck and you don't know how to get out of it, right? And then the other is maybe you're on the plan, but you're just not seeing progress, right? So I guess let's start with the second one. If you're on the plan and you're not seeing progress, you feel you're in a rut. So I have some very specific opinions on this, but do you have any suggestions for somebody that's stuck in a rut?
Yeah, I think stuck in a rut is such interesting language, and I think it invites I would have a lot I if someone were coming to me oh, I'm in a rut.
Yeah,
I
have 10 questions.
I'm mad curious about that.
Yeah.
Curious. And I think if I were to generalize, what I see most often is that when we try to change something about the way we're eating from a place of self-hatred or punishment, that's where things tend to not end well or not be sustainable. Whereas if we can approach this next step from a place of worth, where I'm choosing to nourish my body because my body is worth being nourished, typically it is much more sustainable. And so if someone is in a rut, I think that's probably where I would first start, which is it sounds like you're having some pretty strong negative feelings about your body. Tell me about that.
Damn, you just went straight hardcore emotional. That was not the direction I was going.
Well, great. I would be super curious to hear what your direction would be.
So you've heard me do this many times. When someone makes a statement that is just I'm stuck, or everybody does this, or this happens all the time, the first thing that I always ask is that true? And when you talk about being in a nutrition rut, right? I'm not making progress anymore. Okay, is that true? Let's look at your scans for the last 3 months. Okay, look, turns out you've actually lost 4% body fat over 3 months. You're actually doing great.
Yeah.
How long do you feel you've been in this rut? Oh, it's been 2 weeks. Okay, how do you measure whether you've been in this rut? Oh, my weight hasn't changed for 2 weeks. Okay, but you've lost 4% body fat before that, right? Yes. Okay, but do you expect you always gonna, is it a linear, I start asking those questions. Because I think a lot of people, and this comes down to intention around the holiday, a lot of people just focus on what's in front of them. They're I didn't lose weight from yesterday.
Yeah.
My nutrition sucks. And it's that has literally nothing to do with what happened between yesterday and today, right? I mean, unless you doubled your calories that day. So yeah, when it comes down to it, you have to ask yourself, is that true? And how are you going to know if it's true is if you have a measure that's external to how you feel. So this is why we talk about doing scans. We do the weight, weighing yourself. Like, I know some people kind of feel like if you have a goal to lose weight, I know some people feel like really weird about weighing themselves. But if my goal is to lose weight, I weigh myself every day. And the reason I do that is because I don't have emotion around it if I do it often. It's just like, oh, this is where I'm at today. General trend is this. And I'll actually go and look and I have it in a chart. Oh, general trend is this. Fantastic. Right? If the general trend is going up and I want to lose weight, maybe I need to make some changes, but I don't have the emotion around it, right? Because I do it every day. If I did it once a week or once every 2 weeks, I might be more emotional around it because I'm like, shit, I worked so hard this week. I'm waiting for the scale to say this thing, you know? So it's all like I almost advise people either never do it or just do it often so that you can remove yourself from the emotion. Anyway, okay, so getting out of a rut. So if you determine that you are in a rut, and this is more going to the first one, like I'm way off my plan, I just stuck, right? Then it's just like any other rut. And I think what you have to do is you have to start really, really small and then work your way up. So the analogy that I use, have you ever been on a spinning bike and like set it to level 10? Have you ever done spinning?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So spinning bike set to level 10, right? And it's stopped and you start to push. It's like really hard to push. Like you have to push really hard to just crank it to 1. And then you got to push not quite as hard, but hard to crank it to 2. And then you just kind of keep it going. And then once you keep it going, then it's easier to go, right? So I actually just did a video about this, how to get out of a rut. It's funny. The first thing I do is take a shower, right? Even though it has nothing to do with nutrition, I take a shower because I feel better when I'm clean. And then I clean up my physical environment. So my desk, my office, my car, whatever. So now I've got 2 wins. I'm clean, my environment is clean, right? Then I drink water. It's funny because a lot of times we feel like we're in a rut and then just dehydrated. And I will start walking, right? So these are just like 4 small wins that you can do today, right? So once I do those things, I usually do this for like 1 to 3 days. And this is like literally what I do. I usually do these things for 1 to 3 days and I have no expectations about anything else, right? After those 1 to 3 days, I start taking tougher steps. So then I'm like, okay, I'm going to work out every day, right? If I was just walking, I'm going to actually step it up to a workout. And this will be day 3 to day 10. I'll work out every day. I will also like make some changes to what I'm eating, right? And so it's not just like I'm drinking water, but like maybe I'm eating a, healthier breakfast or I'm eating, 800 grams of fruits and vegetables or whatever. I'll make some changes. And then the third thing I'll do is I will get up earlier, like 1 hour earlier, unless I'm already getting up at 5 a.m., but like 1 hour earlier. If I do those 3 things with no expectation of the outcome for like the next 10 days, now I'm feeling like I have momentum in my life and I can make the bigger changes, right? And like really, it's just like this, that flywheel. If you do little wins, then you can get there faster. And within 10 days, you'll feel like, okay, I'm like 90% back, right? Great. Now I can really dial in what I need to do. Does that make sense?
I love it. Actually, RD was we were talking about something.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Right? You brush your teeth.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect.
Being clean is like a big thing. Also the physical space, like that personally for me, when something's cluttered, it feels like physically uncomfortable. Like it's just such a heavy weight. Like when you start making the space around you ordered, it's way easier to maintain that.
Yeah. It's basically you're giving yourself small wins, right? Small things that make you feel good about yourself. And that means like, okay, my whole life isn't going down the drain. Like because I'm actually doing little things that indicate that I want to continue moving forward.
Totally. I love it so much. And I think it illustrates the point of like greater clarity through action than through thought. Right? So like if we're in a rut and we like wait until we have an epiphany or watch this like inspirational movie or whatever, it's like, it's probably not going to come. But if we can just act act, do one small thing,
Yep.
even if it sucks and it causes us so much pain, we don't want to do it. If we can just do that one small thing,
Yep.
typically have such a much more dramatic effect
Yeah.
than if we wait until the moment is right in our minds, which
Yeah.
may or may not ever come.
Yeah. So it's a funny thing about motivation. You have to take action first, and that leads to success. And then success is what actually motivates you. Motivation does not come from watching a YouTube video about motivation. I mean, I like.
Although
that
remember,
stuff,
the Titans was like pretty
Yeah.
big for me.
that makes you feel good.
So good.
But like, you have to take action, and then you get these little wins, and the wins kind of push you to success. Like, it's a funny thing. RD, you probably had this experience. When people start here, when they first start, we just want to get you moving. Like, you might have this goal, like, I want to lose 20 pounds or 50 pounds. Like, I wanted to lose 100 pounds when I started, right? You might have this goal, but if you focus on that goal, you are going to be sorely disappointed because it's not going to happen in a week one, right? What you have to focus on is just showing up. And then once you start showing up, then you get a little more comfortable, right? We've talked about this before. You get a little more comfortable, and then you start to see progress, right? You start to get some success. It's when you have success, like, let's say you had a goal to lose 20 pounds. Big goal, but you're kind of like, whatever. And then you lose like 2 or 3 pounds, and you're just like, okay, like, I can do this. And then you are like more committed to that 20, like, you can really focus on the 20 pounds then. But when you first start, it's not a good place to go to be, right? So you have to get these wins, so then you get motivated, and then you go for it. Does that make sense? Like, you don't care about your deadlift, like how much you can deadlift the first time you do it.
Yeah.
You care about it after you do it 5 times, and you're like, I'm kind of strong. Like, let me go for 200. You know? Yeah, that's how it works. Yeah. Was that your experience, RD?
Yeah, I mean, my like, what is it? The big, hairy, audacious goal was just to like casually be able to do pull-ups, which like I can't even do one. I knew that wasn't going to happen in like the first 8 weeks of my training.
Yep.
And so in my mind, I was just like, I'm just going to show up and I'm going to do what Katie asked me to do. And it was great. That's how I ended up at the competition.
I love it. Yeah. So I would say really getting out of any rut just comes down to finding small wins. And, you know, you can brush your teeth, take a shower, whatever, but this is just like how I do it. When it comes to nutrition, it might just be that you start by eating like, you know, a couple of boiled eggs for breakfast, you know, versus like having a Danish or whatever. And those little wins will start to kind of motivate you. This is actually one of the reasons. Look, here's the secret, okay? This is at the end, so if you see this at the end, here's the secret. Working out does not help you lose weight. Like, if your goal is to lose weight, working out is not going to do it, okay? What will help you do it is dialing in your nutrition and your sleep, but working out is a small win that will motivate you to dial in your nutrition and sleep. And that's why we start with working out, because once you start doing healthy things, you start to feel like I am a healthy person, and you start doing more healthy things. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Solid. All right.
Awesome.
That's all the questions. Anything come up for you, RD?
No, it was super fun.
Solid. Thank you for joining us. I'm sorry we just had one camera here. I'll figure it out next time so you can see Katie as well. I'll switch it right now so you can see her.
It's okay. I just saw her.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Seen enough of Katie.
seen enough of that face for one day.
All right. Well, appreciate you joining us, Katie. Thanks for joining us,
Awesome.
joining me today. That was super fun.
Yep.
And we'll be doing this again next Wednesday at 3. All right.
Heck yeah.
Bye.
Adios.